3, 2, and 1, and welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today, folks, is the former CEO of Traditional Medicinals. Please welcome Mr. Blair, Kellison. Blair, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So Blair, you kind of have a unique impact story. How would you bring our viewership into the fold? What is the origin of your impact story?
Sure. So I grew up in the Midwest, pretty traditional Midwestern background, went to college to get a job, not to get an education, became an accountant, got a job at Ernst & Young, became a CPA, went and got an MBA after that in marketing and moved to California and from the Midwest and took a job at Nestle as a brand manager. And while I was living in Santa Monica, which is in Southern California, one day first of all, I was kind of always a healthy guy, but I didn't really associate health so much with nutrition. It was, and you live in LA, everybody's pretty darn healthy, the smoothie shops, the whole thing. So I kind of got the health bug and the connection between sort of diet and health, I guess, for the first time in my life. And I started shopping at the 19th Street Natural Foods Co-op. Still exists today in Santa Monica. And I started buying these vegetarian, vegan, mission-driven companies, products, and really fell in love with the whole concept that these foods were not just good for you, but their business models were positively changing the world. Organic foods and fair trade, paying fair wages, and I got pretty excited about it. And I ended up, and then I became a vegetarian. And I guess they started calling me the MBA granola head at work, which was fine. And like all good granola heads, I guess, I quit and took a 75% pay cut. And I went to work for a company in Northern California selling veggie burgers. And that was the beginning of my journey into doing something for a living that lined up with making the world a better place.
And what were some of the early experiences at the veggie burger position that you were able to take into Traditional Medicinals?
So the biggest thing, the single biggest difference was probably had everything to do with the fact that it was a mission and values oriented company, and equally that it was a small company. And so I'd like to think I was always a passionate guy and always a nice guy. But when you work at Ernst & Young and you work at Nestle, your personality doesn't really matter that much. It's kind of all about the subject matter expertise and all about the work. And then all of a sudden, I was the same person. Now I'm in a small company, and I'm really passionate about something a whole bunch of other people at work are passionate about. And all of a sudden, I saw that I was being very effective at being a manager because people really believed in me and they were motivated by me, and I had empathy for them, and I could understand who they were, and this whole side of me that I didn't actually even know existed. I was 35 years old. This whole side of me that turned out to be really the hallmark of my leadership going forward came out for the first time in my career.
And, a lot of entrepreneurs who start their organizations, a lot of visionaries have a difficult time integrating what they want to achieve because it's a people game. What are some of the lessons that you've learned through your time, and what is your leadership philosophy?
So my leadership philosophy is super simple. It's based on kindness and purpose and passion. And so, first of all, you got to really create an environment for people to just a nice place to work. They got to be able to. A person has to be able to come to work and be themselves. They need to be able to be the same person at work they are later that day with their kids at home, and they need to be whatever their sexual orientation is, whatever their economic orientation, racial orientation. They need to feel trusted and loved and comfortable that they can come to work and be themselves. And then from that, if you can give them a reason for coming to work, a purpose, and get them to be passionate about what they're doing, it's remarkable what people are capable of doing. They say that the average person who comes to work brings about 70% of themselves on an average day. I think people come to the companies I work for and bring 100% of themselves. And so what happens is they come up with good ideas and good processes and new ways of thinking because they come to work and they walk in the door, they're all in, and they're trusted and they're loved, and they know that the CEO of the company knows who they are and cares who they are and values what they do. And it's just. When I look at all my success in my career, I attribute it all to just being to the power of kindness.
And what were some of the unexpected outputs of these three philosophies of kindness, purpose, and passion?
Well, I think I didn't realize how much more the average person could give you. I think having worked in, say I was 35 years old before I got into the natural foods industry, and having worked at companies like Nestle and Ernst & Young, I thought that's kind of what work was all about. That's sort of what you get out of an employee. And so I think that was the big surprise, was that people really could had this. Everybody has this like extra gear, and I had not seen that before. And then I think also people are really looking for meaning in their lives, and when they can get it at work, it really helps them focus. When they can really feel like I'm aligned with what this company's doing. This company's trying to reduce the consumption of red meat, and as a result, we're going to have a healthier planet and a healthier diet. And when people can connect that to their work, then they really just feel better about going to work every day, and they care about what they do. And then you really need to connect with. I'm a consumer products guy. You really need to connect with your employees the same way you connect with your consumers. The same reason people want to buy your products at the grocery store should be the same reason people want to come work for you. It's the ethos of the company.
And talk about a few of the other impact initiatives that traditional medicinals had going on at the time. How do you view stakeholder capitalism?
Right. So this was a great thing that I really learned from traditional medicinals and our founder, Drake Sadler. It's not something that I dreamed up. But Drake started the company in 1974. So I came into the company in his 34th year. And he and his co-founder, Rosemary Gladstar, really started this a stakeholder business model. So they wanted to connect people to the power of these plants. They really wanted people to see that these herbal plants could really change the health of their lives. But they wanted to do it in a business model where nobody was exploited. And so they really look at in a stakeholder model, your shareholders are important, but so are your employees, and so are your growers, and so are your retailers and suppliers. Everybody's in the business model together as a stakeholder, and it enables you. And as a B Corp, which is great, you're in business for your stakeholders, not your shareholders, which is a tenet of being a B corporation, which traditional medicinals was. And then you can do something that's best for your herb growers that's maybe not even best for your shareholders at a particular time. And that's a very unique opportunity as a CEO to kind of do the right thing in totality for the organization and do the right thing over time. So maybe this year there's something we need to do to give a return to the shareholders. And maybe next year, the next 2 years, we need to build some new schools in one of our regions, and we're going to really do what's best for them. And and that's an opportunity to really have the company reach its full potential, to have that kind of a breadth of decision making, versus if you're just looking for the shareholders and you're just trying to maximize profits. And it's a whole different way to run a business. As a CEO, it's amazing to be the CEO of a B corporation.
Blair, a major theme of this conference has been regeneration. Where has regeneration shown up in your career?
Listen, I believe firmly that people and companies are either growing or they're shrinking. You don't get to be the same. So by definition, if you want to go through time, you have to continue to be renewed and regenerate yourself. Otherwise, you will get stale, your companies will get stale. And so we need to constantly be, if you're not growing and evolving, I can guarantee you, as a leader, if you're not growing and evolving, I can guarantee you your organization's not growing and evolving. And if you're not growing and evolving as a leader, your people aren't growing and evolving. And everybody wants to get to a certain place and they love it. They just want to put their arms around and say, oh, this is it. I want to just stay right here. And you don't get to do that. You as a person, as a company, have to continue to evolve.
There's two pain points that a lot of our customers are dealing with right now. The first one is change management with the new business model and COVID. And the second one was talent acquisition. With change management, people resist change. How have you been able to lead an organization through a difficult time?
So here's the biggest thing I've learned in my years of change management is the importance of the cadence of change. So we talk a lot about change management, but we don't talk a lot about the timing of it or how quickly we do it. I'll just use my example. Change is like a big bowl of broccoli, and you're the organization, and I want you to change. I need you to change to grow. So I could take a whole bunch of Brussels sprouts and shove them in your mouth, and what are you going to do? You're going to spit them back out. But if I give you one, and you eat it, and you digest it, I can give you another one after that. And I never will make, and what you need to do with the cadence of change is you feed the broccoli, they digest it, and as soon as they're done, you have another one on the fork. You don't give them any lead time. And then what happens over time is the organization gets better at eating broccoli, and they can eat it faster and faster. And so that's how I don't know, maybe a corny example, but it's taking change into bite-sized pieces and presenting it to people, having them digest it, and when they digest it, give them more change. And it's the cadence of change. And then what happens is over time, you create an agile organization. Next thing you know, your organization is agile. And it can really change. It can eat broccoli pretty fast. It can move and change different ways because you've taught it. You've now created a muscle memory in the organization on how to be an agile learning organization. And that's the future of business, is to be very agile. The world is changing, technology is changing, the way people buy products are changing. You have to be an agile company to do that. Talent attraction is almost up for grabs right now. It's really hard to say what that's going to mean. I think we've got to, nobody's got it all figured out. Nobody's got a crystal ball to figure out where we're going to be. But when I was at Traditional Medicinals, one of the things I said in the last year was, we've got to meet people where they're at. So if people don't want to come in the office, we can't make them come in the office. If we need a job and it doesn't exist locally, we need to hire for that job anywhere in the country. And so we picked 5 jobs in 2021 that we were willing to hire someone completely remotely, would never be in the office ever. And then we're just going to go on a learning journey and see how those people operated and see whether we could expand that. But I think companies have to have all the options on the table, because success as a business is all about people. It's all about people and being in the right place, the right time, the right seat on the bus, and getting things done, right? And so if you don't have those people, no matter where they are, I'd rather have the right person and living in Wyoming than not have them at all. And I think companies have to really adapt to that kind of thinking.
How have you improved your communication process for change management? What are some takeaways?
I think the number one thing is it has to be constant and consistent. So there isn't a magic bullet. You don't have a big, what I tell you, what I've really learned is you don't have an employee meeting and talk about change and then everybody goes and changes. You'd like to think that, and I used to think that when I was younger, like, well, I told everybody this is what we're doing now. It's like when you go to the meeting, it's like the rubber band stretches and they listen to you, and then the meeting ends and it goes right back to what it was. And so what you have to do is you have to be consistent in that message and constant in that message, and you have to start incorporating it into all the different messaging that you do as a company. And then you have to do some structural things. Maybe you're going to go into some kind of a new venture business or something, and then you start hiring people to do that. One of the best ways to make change stick is to physically change things, actually move people around. So like at Traditional Medicinals, we really believe that the future of e-commerce was not really about sales, but about the consumer, really understanding the consumer and where they wanted to buy that. So we talked about that for a lot, and maybe things didn't change enough. And so, but then what we did is we took the e-commerce division and we moved it into the marketing department. Well, that sure got everybody's attention. I mean, that was a physical change. And so then people were like, oh, we're not doing that anymore, right? There was no road back to doing that. And so that's why I kind of call it there's a military strategy around burn the boats. Like you sail somewhere, you get on the island, you burn the boats, we're going forward, we're not going back. And so I think sometimes when you make one important thing about change is to eliminate the roads back to the past.
What do you think has been the biggest misconception of leadership in your life? You said, look, when I was younger, maybe I thought it was going to be this way. Now looking back, where have you been wrong about leadership?
Well, I think when I was younger, I thought leadership was about the position. The person that was the CEO was the leader because they were the CEO. The person who was the leader was your boss, and that leadership and management were the same thing. And I think what I've learned is that it sounds kind of trite to say this, but managers manage and leaders lead. So an example I would say would be a group of, I thought when I was younger, a manager had 5 people that worked for them, and they kind of told them what to do, and then those 5 people went out and got all that stuff done, and then that's how you got things done as a manager. And what I've learned as a leader is that you hire 5 people in their areas of subject matter. They're more experts than you are, and then those people tell you what to do. That's the difference between leadership and management. And so when you really think about it, that management group is kind of only as good as the one manager, because the manager is telling everybody what to do. And the leadership group is as good as all 6 people together.
From an investor and CEO relationship point, what makes a successful, or I guess a good match when investors are working with the CEOs or the entrepreneur?
Probably the number one thing is transparency, so that everybody, setting the right expectations going in, And then that's super important. You'll find sometimes somebody came into the company, they thought it was going to be $100 million in 3 years, and the company thought it was going to be $40 million in 3 years. And that's a recipe for disaster. So I think that part of it is setting the right expectations going in, and the onus is on the company as well. Sometimes when you're raising money, you give them the very best, rosiest picture possible, and then that's what they invest in. And so then if you're short of that at all, they're not going to make the return they were expected. So I think you're better off to in life always to underestimate yourself a little bit and exceed your expectations. Under promise and over deliver versus over promise and under deliver. I think that's one way. I think that's one thing they have to do from the start. And the second piece would be transparency. This is where we are. This is what's going on. No surprises. I have a kind of a no surprises rule. I don't want to ever have a board meeting or discussion with an investor where something's happened and they didn't know anything about. And because listen, people can take good news, obviously, but they can also take bad news. What they can't take is uncertainty, and they can't take an environment where you did something and you didn't tell them, and you break their trust. So I believe if you're open and honest with everybody, that they'll come along with you. And okay, you know what? We're not going to get to 100 million in 4 years. It's going to take us 7 years. This is how we're going to do it. And you tell them that in year one, that's going to be acceptable for them. And more times than not.
I'm not going to begin to assume where you are in your impact journey, but if you were to fast forward when you exit, when you get to that point, what do you want your legacy to be?
So I've been blessed with a great career, great opportunities. Listen, people are only good as the opportunities they've been given. So people who have been founders of companies have given me the opportunity to run their companies. I'm very lucky for that. It's an honor to run anybody's company as a CEO, and I've been really fortunate for those experiences. I've learned a lot, I've made a lot of mistakes, and the thing that I would like to do most of all, and I'm a purposeful person, so I've spent my whole life following my heart, doing things like moving from accounting to marketing, because I didn't really like accounting, moving from marketing mass products to natural foods products, and in doing that, a lot of my peers, including my family, didn't think those were great choices, So Blair's following his heart, that sounds great, but it looked kind of stupid to everybody else. Like, why, you're quitting a great job? Why are you taking that crummy job? And so what I would love most of all is to go back to my younger self and put my arm around them and say, hey, these decisions you're making about following your heart and following your passions and this resistance you're getting from your friends and your family, like, stay the course. This is what life is all about. Life is about figuring out who you are and going for it. And since I can't do that, I spend a lot of my career going back and spending time with people who are younger than me and helping them see that this dream that they're following, this purpose and this passion that they're following, and with some kindness, that they are on the right path and they are on the right journey. And I mentor probably at least 100 kids a year, and all over some of them are all over the world. And I love it when somebody calls me up and literally they'll get a promotion, they'll get offered a job and they'll say, I said, well, did you take it? That's a great job. No, I needed to call you first, Blair. Like, that's the most meaningful things people tell me. Or when I speak to them and they tell me that, like, no one's ever spoken to me like this before, because maybe they're around a lot of conventional people and they're kind of following their heart, and then hey, here's this other guy that has an MBA and a CPA like me, but boy, he took a different path, and look what happened with him, and he's really happy. And those are the most rewarding things, and that's something I hope I can do till the day I die, is to continue. My superpower is helping people find their superpower.
And many of the people at this conference had a career realization like that, a spear to the chest moment in their career. For anyone out there listening to that, going through the same career limbo right now, what questions should they be asking themselves?
Right, that's a great question. I think you first have to get to know yourself. Spend time with yourself. Take a trip by yourself somewhere. Spend time by yourself. Some people meditate, some people do other things, but spend some time figuring out what makes you tick. Who are you? What is your Mark Twain has a famous saying. There's the two most important days in your life. Or the one is the day you were born, and the second is the day you figure out why you were born. So figure out why you were born. Figure out why you exist. Figure out what your likes are, and then another thing to think about is, what do you like to do? What are your passions? Is it music? Is it outdoors? Is it food? Is it the environment or nature? Whatever those things are, and do your best to try to line up your career with your passion. So your purpose is kind of why do I exist and who I am, and your passions are kind of all those things that you like to do. If you can line your purpose and your passions up, you will enjoy, and success is a funny word, but you will enjoy success unparalleled. But success, you have to define what success means to you. If Blair defined success by money or by becoming a partner at Ernst & Young or something like that, I would be a very unsuccessful person today. But I defined my success as putting my talents to work at companies that had a mission and a purpose to change the world for a better place through their business models. And in my definition, it's just mine, I've been very successful.
Well, it seems like a very fulfilled life. Thanks for coming on the show to share about your impact journey today, Blair. Let's bring this home. What is your definition of a real leader?
I think a person who is themselves. I think there are as many different leaders in this world as there are different people. You cannot read a book about Jack Welch and GE and become like Jack Welch. You are your own unique person. Get to know who you are. I lead with kindness, purpose, and passion because that's how I've led my life. That you've got to lead from who you are, and the first thing you have to do is get into a company where you can be yourself. Because if you can't be yourself, you can't even begin to be authentic. And if you're not authentic, you can't even begin to be a leader.
For Blair Kellison, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, be yourself, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Blair. Appreciate it.
Thanks.